Why buy gold? You've probably heard these reasons before. Stock market volatility, dollar crisis, economic collapse, because we don't know what tomorrow brings. But probably the most important reason you should buy gold is for diversification. You've heard it before, but you never want to put all of your eggs in one basket. It gives me peace of mind, knowing that I own something real, tangible, and helps me to sleep better at night. Gold is considered a safe haven asset, a potential hedge against inflation and an eroding dollar. It's physical, meaning you can hold it in your hand, and you can pass it on to your children and your grandchildren. The company that I trust, that I do business with, is Goldline. Give them a call right now. Speak to a representative or click the link below to download a free investor kit. Find out if buying gold and silver is right for you. Do it today, because there's no better time to prepare. Hey everybody, I'm Christopher Green, and you're tuning into AMTV, Alternative Media Television. Today is Tuesday, October 6, 2015. In today's video, you'll learn the truth about ISIS, why President of Russia, Vladimir Putin, is about to ready over 150,000 or more Russian ground troops into Syria. You know, it's pretty amazing because a couple of years ago in 2013, AMTV interviewed Senator John McCain up in Prescott Valley here in Arizona and asked him a very specific question about Syria. Whether or not Russia would act as a result of U.S. meddling and intervention in this part of the world. He gave us a very specific answer and even a personal guarantee, which is unbelievable because I don't know how you personally guarantee anything. But he guaranteed personally that Russia would not act. Take a look.
For 30 years.
Senator, there are 5 U.S. warships in the Mediterranean right now. Russia and China allegedly are sending warships as well. Russia, China, and Iran have warned the United States of catastrophic consequences if the United States attacks Syria. What are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts are that it doesn't concern me in the slightest.
And why is that?
Because they will not act, just as they didn't act when the Israelis 4 times have taken out targets inside Syria. Syria said that they would react, and they didn't. The United States is the most powerful nation in the world, and we're not going to be intimidated by Russia and China. We are not. So I guarantee you that they will not act. If we launch these strikes against Syria, they will not act.
Now, either Senator John McCain was lying to us, lying to AMTV, the alternative media, the American people, and the international community at large, or he's just plain dumb. He's stupid. He's an idiot. Because Russia did, in fact, act, starting last Monday, with a series of airstrikes that have culminated in dozens and dozens of direct hits at ISIS strongholds, virtually and arguably wiping out the Islamic State in just a matter of days. You've seen the images across your TV sets and on the internet, on YouTube, of Putin bombing the crap out of ISIS strongholds, which brings up a very important question that we need to ask as thinking people with our thinking caps on. How is it possible that Vladimir Putin, in a matter of days, is arguably able to wipe out ISIS completely, sending this radical terrorist network running for their lives, quite literally fleeing into places like Europe, yet Barack Obama here in the United States, who's been waging his own air campaign illegally for over the course of a year since September 2014 of last year, has proven so ineffective? How is it that Obama, since last year, over a year now, an anti-congressional illegal executive action, has been bombing through airstrikes Syria for over a year, yet has failed to accomplish its mission, when it only takes Putin a matter of a few days and a series of a few dozen airstrikes to completely wipe out and destroy this group? Now, either the United States is incredibly weak, our military far weaker than most American people once believed, the president inept, and this just showcases the strength and brawn and reemergence of a global superpower in the name of Russia and President Vladimir Putin's government, or the intent of the United States and Barack Obama, Western allies and intelligence had no intent of ever taking out ISIS. In fact, their real intent was to create it, to arm, according to them, the moderate terrorists on the ground to destabilize the Middle East and specifically target and take out leaders they just don't happen to like, people like Bashar al-Assad. Frame him just a couple of years ago and accuse him, wrongly, this is proven to be false now, of gassing his own people through chemical warfare in Ghouta, murdering men, women, and children, only to be found out later through third-party independent investigative journalists and also investigators at the United Nations spearheaded by Carla Del Ponte that it was far more likely that it was the moderate terrorists and rebels funded, armed, and backed by the United States on the ground that committed the heinous act than it was the Assad government. You see, folks, this is the real agenda. Create al-Qaeda, let it spawn into ISIS, arm the moderate terrorists, which become radicals, and becomes the Islamic State today, which is cutting people's heads off. Use that as an excuse to galvanize American public support, to intervene in this part of the world and overthrow rightful sovereign governments like in Syria or Libya with Muammar Gaddafi, and the illegal gun trafficking, which made up Benghazi Gate, CIA liaison Christopher Stevens, which resulted in his death and several other Americans. The revolutions and re-revolutions we've seen in places like Egypt. George W. Bush's illegal wars in places like Iraq and Afghanistan. In fact, if George W. Bush was to invade the real culprit, according to the official narrative post-September 11, 2001, he would have invaded Saudi Arabia, not Iraq and Afghanistan, because most of the terrorists, according to our own government, were actually Saudi nationals, not Iraqis, not Afghanis. And by the way, if you're not already familiar with, there were no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Saddam Hussein had no WMDs. That was also a lie. It's been admitted to by the CIA, U.S. intelligence, mainstream media outlets, and our government here in the United States. They were just flat out wrong. Just like John McCain was flat out wrong in Prescott Valley when we asked him whether or not Russia would act as a result of U.S. intervention in Syria. I mean, folks, this is unbelievable. How can you be this friggin' wrong about what's happening geopolitically unless you're just flat out lying to the American people? You know, posing with known terrorists like John McCain has done in the past, the same moderate terrorists that have become the radicals that make up ISIS, ISIL, the Islamic State today. I mean, is ISIS even real? Or is it just like the moon landing, as some people believe, just a propaganda tool to serve a specific agenda in this part of the world, to take out leaders that the West just doesn't like? You know, Putin has been so successful over the past few days eliminating ISIS that even Iraq wants him to step up airstrikes in their country. That's how effective Vladimir Putin has been. He's only highlighted and showcased and humiliated the United States for what it really is. A liar, a psychopath, invading country after country illegally for its own reasons that many Americans simply don't understand. The same reason the New York Times and CNN failed to admit over the weekend and even suggest that the United States was responsible for bombing a hospital and killing doctors working for Doctors Without Borders and children in Afghanistan over the weekend. That same media that won't even link their own government when the evidence is staring them right in the face. This propaganda web that makes up the mainstream media, the pawn that is the face of Barack Obama, that represents the corporate interests that push forward this New World Order agenda, this feudalistic system that makes up new partnerships like the TPP, to integrate the world into a new world order, to take away the freedom, rights, and liberty of everyday Americans, to create this surveillance state and prison of fear. They're listening to your conversations, they're wiretapping your cell phones, they're doing it all for your best interests, they say, because there's a threat of terrorism. Even though it's our government, arguably, that creates the terrorists in the first place, backs people like Osama bin Laden, and then turns on them and later kills them, helps arm the moderate terrorists on the ground in places like Syria and others in the Middle East, and only helps to foster the growth of even more radical terrorist elements like ISIS. You see, folks, this is the real truth about ISIS. This is the real agenda of the West in the Middle East. It's staring you right in front of your face. As a result of this, up to 250,000 people have died in Syria in just the last year or so. Up to 1 million plus or more civilians dead, according to third-party reports, as a result of the illegal invasions and wars in places like Iraq and Afghanistan. Yet most Americans just don't understand the reasons we're there, what the intent actually is. And people like John McCain sell us lies, although I think they know better, about how Russia isn't going to act to U.S. meddling in this part of the world. Of course they know Russia is going to act. It's a part of the agenda to destabilize, take out, and destroy the entire Middle East. Just like General Wesley Clark told us in his famous interview with Democracy Now!, take out every single country in the Middle East. Start with Iraq and Afghanistan, move to Yemen, Lebanon, Egypt, Syria, and eventually Iran. That's the agenda. Seek and destroy. Destabilize. Use the mouthpiece of the propaganda machine that makes up the mainstream media to galvanize, catalyze public support for these wars as a reason we need to intervene. As a result of this radical terrorist element in the name of ISIS, it is committing war crimes and killing people by cutting their freaking heads off. Jihadi John. Again, is any of this even real? Or has it just been created as a figment of the CIA's imagination to propel a very specific agenda of war? This is the real truth, folks. This is the real agenda in the Middle East. It's the truth about ISIS. And this is what you can expect. More war, more violence, and more death. I'm Christopher Green. Get this video out everywhere, make it viral, hard-hitting it in your face, and click the link below to support our sponsor.